When you are a child, creating your own worlds and stories is always fascinating. Building military bases from Lego pieces, imagining the sticks you and your friends carry are real weapons, and you are fighting hordes of zombies defending your playground, building worlds in Minecraft. Your imagination has no limits, hiding entire novels in your head. As you grow up, if you ever want to dedicate yourself to creating something, you usually already have something particular in mind. It may be your favorite game, art style, music genre, anything you have a spiritual connection with. Some people start making their own art since early ages. For me, as well as for many people, however, it started with a simple, why not, when you have a lot of free time to spend in your teens. I used to play Portal 2 a lot, and after playing around with the level editor that got added, I noticed something. Not a lot of the maps from the workshop looked the same. In fact, best maps usually had custom previews and far more complex designs than the in-game editor allowed. That left me wondering, how are people able to create maps of such high quality? This is how I discovered Hammer Editor. At the time, all this was too complex for me to learn, and I didn't really think that I have what it takes to create a good map. Fast forward to year 2016. I got really invested into Bhop, often playing many maps that I enjoyed a lot. Of course, I wanted to make a map of my own, and so my journey with Hammer Editor finally began. Looks impressive, doesn't it? There is a saying in the mapping community, never upload your first map. It may look like gatekeeping, however many mappers understand sometime later. People say that for a reason. Although this is purely me playing around in Hammer, my actual first map isn't far from this. Take a look yourself. Unaligned water, a surf ramp that doesn't even connect properly, weird lights, horrible displacements, and terrible textures. There is a reason people do not use Functor, a brush entity that moves after getting triggered. It goes down into the teleport trigger after colliding with the player hitbox, making them unable to touch it a second time for a brief moment. As you can imagine, this is a terrible idea for a multiplayer map. Even though plugins today negate that, this is still a bad practice to use moving blocks as Bhop blocks, because far superior methods exist. Of course, my little self did not know that. Funnily enough, I learned it halfway through making this map, but never remade any of the first levels. This map isn't much better, and it's hard to find a version of it online. However, it has better design, and the Bhop blocks on each level represent a letter from my nickname, so that's bonus style points. For some reason, it was uploaded to the true Bhopping server that I occasionally played on at the time, so that made me very proud. While this one lacks some unique gameplay, this is my first proper map. Of course, it's very flawed, but for 13 or 14-year-old me, that was huge progress. Needless to say, I was proud of it. I even made my own custom concrete texture to use on blocks. There's a cool low gravity level in the middle, and this is where you can notice something. These thin pillars. Don't they look familiar? It is also the first map of mine to appear on Source Jump, in one of the compilations. When you are starting out, you have a lot of random ideas, so you just throw stuff at the wall to see what sticks. As seen in my map from early 2017, Bhop Sad Gidi Dengi.
Actually, this would be pronounced Bhop Sad Gidi Dengi, but yeah.
I had a lot of ideas, and I felt that randomly mixing them all into a single map is a good idea. This is also one of my first takes on realism. You might wonder about the naming of these two. Sad is one of the admins of the Truby Hoping server, which I was a regular player on. A very special character, if I say so myself. The names translate to sad, where are the oranges? And sad, where is the money? So, the orange outline and light represent oranges, and the mishmash of themes represents the search for money that happened. Look at the stacks, hiding at the end. Let's look at Bhop Narratop, the map I made after the oranges one. As you may already know, I'm a huge fan of Portal, so I ported a lot of Portal textures and used them in this map. But besides that, a major source of my inspiration was this map, the third map in the Badges trilogy, and a map that I believe was his magnum opus. It has a vibe of loneliness, yet a very soft one. Warm, soothing sunlight, calm ambience, and solitude you experience in the matrix that the gameplay takes place in. But mostly, it was concrete and architecture that caught my eye. Concrete is an interesting thing for design. Bland and soulless by itself, but tasteful and appealing if done right. It is a go-to choice for an easy, mindless design that will still look good, like developer textures. Look at me using them in Bhop SODXWXTER, a map I made in late 2016 because I had no internet that day and I got bored. This is not to say these two choices are bad. To me, concrete feels like vodka in a cocktail. It's a perfect blank canvas that you mix different flavors in. I still use a lot of concrete textures in my maps. Bhop Sad Gdi Denji was my last Bhop map for a long while. A big part of the reasoning was a diffuse map I worked on for a couple of months. I don't think it's reasonable to cover it in this video. It was a good experience, but really does not fit the so-called movement theme of this video. Let me know if you would like a proper showcase. My next map was published 1.5 years later, in August or September of 2018. Burning out is not an uncommon for artistic and creative people that I would like to think I belong to. Sometimes you have no time, sometimes you don't have the strength, will, or dedication, but it can simply be boredom. This is what happened to me at the time. But you do feel burnt out even as an active mapper, having to overcome yourself sometimes. I had a lot of terrible issues with my Shutdown series, having to sit for hours trying to fix the bugs and issues, caused both by me and by the garbage ancient software that Hammer is. I want to cover it in more detail later on, but I've had a lot of issues with some of my maps, and the worst period for me was working on Bhop Decay. The process itself was fun and smooth. So fun, in fact, that I've spent from 5 to 8 hours almost every day for 2 weeks straight. That last day was a heavy hitter. I did not feel right for days after. Depressive mood was a thing I got used to. First couple of days felt like my soul was taken out of me. So, as an advice to my fellow creative people, always take care of yourself. Because I had a lot of friends that played CSGO at the time, I was an avid player myself. Drew Way. A friend of mine said it would be cool if I tried making a map for KZ, something I've never done before properly. Being free from school and generally feeling well, I gave it a try. This is how KZ Bacho was born, named after some local meme a friend of mine came up with. The KZ community was nice and welcoming, and I generally had a good time with the map. Again, it was a mix of themes, but I feel they mixed well together. Realistic industrial area, a CS classic, mixed with my, at the time matured a little, concrete style. I tried porting it to source as a KZ map and a Bhop map, but in the end, only the Bhop port in source came out. The port was mediocre at best, and I am definitely not satisfied with the results today. A major flaw of that map is that it's very cramped and lazy. If I was porting it today, I would definitely try making better flowing gameplay that does not literally skip a chunk of the map. After successfully releasing a KZ map that was well received by the community, I decided I needed to make a map for Bhop, a mode I still played and loved. However, I did not want to make an ordinary map. None of my previous Bhop maps were really popular or worthy of attention. Mediocre or average, these words did not interest me at all. I wanted to make a small gift to the community by contributing to it with a high-quality map. At the time, Blank also asked me to make a map for a collab that never took place in the end. The stage was released as a standalone map Bhop Leftovers. I spent around a week making it, and while it never became popular, I feel like it's an okay map. It was also a good side project to chill while I worked on something big. And big it was. I spent 5 months working on and off on Bhop Shutdown. Of course, I took my time and was never in a rush. However, I encountered a lot of issues that slowed me down. Having to deal with a bigger scale project was not easy. A disgusting part of VRAD, Source Lighting Compiler, is these horrible bugged shadows that can randomly appear on any diagonal walls. Maybe a properly experienced mapper will correct me. However, I have searched for a fix for a long time without any luck. I believe it is something related to hints and vis leafs. Shutdown is a big or medium big-sized map, made using my now mature mapping style. Brushwork geometry to spice up the design, heavy attention to lighting, and the now familiar concrete textures. As previously said, a lot of inspiration came from Badges, so I jokingly called this a filthy Badges 3 ripoff. A lot of love and thought was put into it. I tried to make different routing choices, foolishly adding filler KZ elements for scroll players. If there was a single thing to change with this map, it's this. The so-called alternative route is so unfun and bland that I should have gotten rid of it entirely. Otherwise, it's a good flowing map that is nice to play on casual and competitive level. It uses a lot of surf that a lot of Bhoppers hate, but I believe that in some ways Bhop is superior to surf because you are never limited to surf ramps. You have freedom to use a lot of movement techniques, only beaten by tricks in that. And surf is a very useful skill and a big element of movement. Fun fact, the end of the open stage used to be completely different, starting with KZ and allowing for a 64 jump with a bit of pre-speed that would skip most of it. This, however, was not welcomed by people that I showed the map to, so I completely reworked that section for the better. Same with the opening booster. I had to change it from a horizontal to a couple of vertical ones, as at the time I did not know how to fix double boosting. To quote my friend with some architecture knowledge, the main focus of the design is constructivism and cubism. Monumental rectangular shapes and a lot of concrete. From now on, if I talk about architecture, take my words with a grain of salt, as these are simple comparisons of my work to the existing styles by people much more knowledgeable than I am. Of course, this map would never be possible without the work that the mapper Nalihi put into it. He made the second stage of the map. You might know him by his map on Bhop World Cup and his Glow Map series. As for the name, Shutdown, it is given to the map because of the design in the latter parts. Nali's stage and the end of the map has a mix between monochrome. a kind of decaying reality with vanishing colors and matter, coming to a full pitch black stop at the very end. This is also represented by a glitchy beat that I made for the latter parts. Here is a lot of yapping on the Game Banana page about the map. In spring of 2019, me and Flo collaborated together. I made a stage for his map Bhop Another Dimension. I think my stage turned out very pretty. So pretty, in fact, that I made it into a whole new map for CSGO, KZ Holy Space. It received a warm welcome from the community, and generally I am proud of this map. I think the aesthetics are very beautiful, and the more advanced lighting engine that CSGO had amps up the visuals nicely. Then a thought crossed my mind. How and why is lost to time, but in August of 2019 I had a thought. I want to make a map, and I know what it needs to look like. So I opened Hammer once again and made a pretty blocky cave now known as the start of Stage 4. The second Shutdown installment, my magnum opus to this day. I have made much more high quality and interesting maps, but this one will always have a special place in my heart. You could love it or hate it. People complained about too much surf, weird gameplay. A random person said to me that I tried to impress everybody, but I impressed nobody. I believe that the community's reaction proves him wrong. It even received the Best of the Banana award on Game Banana, a website to host user-made mods for games. Bhop Murder, Bhop Remains, My Beloved Badges 3, and many more. There are maps with story or lore. Mine has a lot of lore too. With help of the artist Laniran, I could convey it to curious explorers, people that take the time to take a proper look at the map. An idea that is born at the artist's mind, and the hard work it takes to shape it into something beautiful. Stage 1 starts with simple dev textures in the open sky, formless bare-bones layout that starts taking shape and color. Stage 2 starts in a small town in the void of the artist's mind. It is incomplete, but very cozy, beautiful. Then the player visits the abstract and colorful concrete structure with a lot of weird design elements, and then it all fades into nothing. Stage 3 is the struggle, a reversed ending of first Shutdown, representing search into older works. The town later on is lifeless, void of any color. The tree that grew vividly is now dead and dried out, but not all is lost. Stage 4 is what started this map, a cubic cave inspired by what you would see in Minecraft. Incomplete and lifeless, but still bright and beautiful. The player then visits a small abandoned city. Artist's idea is there. It still lives, even if incomplete. Stage 5 is the culmination. Revamped Shutdown 1, an industrial stage by Verbena, aka Benchmarked, and a construction site of Bhop Epiphany by its very creator, Nate. You dive deep into the world that you created, and it is so beautiful. The ending is the funeral of the first Shutdown. You have to let go of your past to move on to something better. And better it is. Yet it still isn't perfect. This map is all trial and error. The creative block that I had at the time was dealt with by letting go of my usual style and ideas to try completely new things. They may not work out, but regression is a form of progress. there are a lot of things I would have done differently today. Skybox, for example, is a tool texture that applies the sky texture behind itself. The brush itself, however, becomes completely transparent, meaning that anything visible behind it will be rendered normally. This leads to unwanted pieces of the map being visible to the player. Pretty logical. From the level design standpoint, anything else would be completely unrealistic. Bhop maps, however, are rarely realistic. Look at me forgetting to use smooth lighting on this structure. At the time, I wasn't really experienced with the game engine, and there were some issues besides the one I mentioned. Source engine is limited in terms of map size, 32768 by 32768 units in all dimensions. It also has built-in limits for how many entities and brushes, vertexes, planes, and so on can exist within a map. Anything above will cause the map to not compile. Thinking the overwhelming issues I have are caused by the engine limits, I went around converting different things to props, not knowing that the bugs were caused by a different thing. It might have helped as well, but I had no idea of what I was doing. Take a look at this corridor. Source uses light map-based lighting, meaning you have a grid with lighting information on each square. That grid is applied to every brush visible. Props, meaning models, however, have approximated lighting information blending between every vertex, ditching the light map system completely. This causes weird lighting you see right now. A purple light at the center of the corridor makes it all purple. What bothers me the most, however, are the issues with contrast, making it hard to see the space you can land on if you have high speed. Time to talk about the map's flow. It is easy at its core, but hard to master. The run by Chuck that got on Source Jump uses an insanely hard skip on benchmarked stage, which was the main reason this map took so long to run. I make sure that even the least skillful players have a chance at attempting this map. Yet, for more skilled people, there are a lot of opportunities to gain speed and cut corners. This map allows for speedy and pleasant gameplay. Even I, mediocre player at best, can attempt to try and set a good time on it. I also make sure every map of mine is scroll possible because I grew up on scroll and I love and respect that game mode a lot. Making a fun map for scroll is pretty easy. Making an auto map be fun on scroll is a bit different. Same with making a scroll map fun on auto. Usually I have a general route in mind when I design my levels. Then I also add the possible speed of a player to the equation. What if I add a skip somewhere or a way to reward a better player? Sometimes it's the other way around. I plan the hard route beforehand. This thinking process allows me to focus on both game modes at a time and provide fun gameplay to both worlds. But it was not like that all the time. When the map came out, a lot of people were disappointed in it. I made some critical mistakes by lacking proper testing. A lot of people played it beforehand, yet skilled runners from Dystopia community criticized it for having cramped and unfun gameplay at some places. Of course, I am open to criticism, and while I respond to hate with even more hate, a player that goes by nickname Unity took their time to write a detailed overview of what he would like to see changed. So, I did not procrastinate. I opened Hammer and made sure to fix most issues I believed were the most annoying. It received a second fix a year later to accommodate for the terrible way Source Engine calculates collision on props. Visually, this is the point I got to play around with different shapes and colors, trying to make the map more vivid. An unusual pink sunlight with light blue indirect lighting. Light blue hue contradicting yellow lights. Purple sunlight in a soothing combo with bright orange colors. I did not know it properly at the time, but a whole theory about colors exists, used by many people in different spheres. If you would like to know of a nice counterpick to your main color scheme, try using the Adobe Color Wheel. I also gave myself freedom in using different shapes and design choices. Though they all follow the same principles, or they are backed up by something, like this realistic part of stage 3, symbolizing a new start after previous struggle. When it comes to the shapes I used, they vary but follow a pattern of sorts. This is a symmetrical garden that remotely resembles ancient Greece and their palaces. This gazebo is similar, resembling a more minimalistic take on classicism that takes roots in ancient Greece. It even has a real-life analog, even though this is a design I came up with myself. And this is more inclined towards constructivism and cubism, using giant monumental structures and rectangular shapes. An old map of mine I skipped is Bhop Fly Flex. It's a tight fly map focused on the player's ability to speed through tight spaces and save their speed. To me, the gameplay feels really cramped and unfun nowadays with a lot of weird design choices. The design is a mishmash of themes I wanted to try, and there is this cool structure you can use to slide and gain downward velocity that I later used on Shutdown 1. But what is a fly map? A good and classic example is Bhop Together. Generally, these maps are focused on airtime and speed. You quite literally fly a lot. A good blend between regular high-speed and fly gameplay can be seen on maps made by Arctic Panda. Bhop Sandtrap is a popular map series that he made, and I always loved playing it. Flyflex is named after Flex Lolo, an old friend of mine that suggested me to try and make a fly map. I do not like playing most fly maps myself, mostly because of my skill issues. However, Blend started a collab known as Bhop Mixture, so I wanted to try and make a fly stage for it. It did not make it due to the previously mentioned engine limits, but I reworked it in the map now known as Bhop Caramel Dancin'. There is a lot to say about such a small map. Choosing the dev texture design, I was completely free to make totally unrealistic and abstract design. And I did not take the easy way of slapping some textures and lights, then calling it a day. The color scheme is based around my favorite color combination of blue, or lilac, and purple, or pink. The design itself was based around on already familiar structures, like windows and pillars, and most importantly, it is mostly symmetrical. This both provides a pleasant visual aesthetic and allows the players freedom of choice between clockwise or counterclockwise turns in most cases. Speaking of gameplay, this is my take on fly maps. Most popular ones are unappealing to me because it takes a lot of learning and rooting to properly complete a map. It is definitely not a bad thing. However, I like my maps to be fun on both casual and record runs. As a creator of this map, I am very biased, but to me the gameplay has such a nice flow that most turns and sections feel natural to me. It may look hard, and it is hard to run properly, but it is possible on scroll and is fairly easy to complete, provided that the player has experience with fly maps. A huge challenge for me at first was getting that flow right. The map used to be much tighter, making the gameplay unfun and cramped. I later scaled it up by 50%, and that hit the sweet spot. There is a sprinkle of trolling at the very beginning. The dreaded ladders. People hate them a lot. However, this one is easy and provides a unique gameplay element from the very start. A careful eye might notice something in the design. Both gameplay and visual design is based around sections. You have strict borders for each color palette that is used, and the gameplay takes turns in going up and down. When it comes to mapping and art in general, a lot of things are experiments. But a good practice is to take already existing elements and try making your personal take on them. For example, to me most reverse gravity sections are pretty boring, so I tried to make one that I had fun on. Surf ramps, windows, these are all familiar and common things. but the combination of all that together is what makes maps unique. As an advice to my fellow mappers, do not be afraid to experiment. And if you ever feel like you don't have any ideas, try taking familiar and existing things and reworking them so that they feel fun and new. You might also notice that while the hue of each section is the same sequence of blue and purple, everything within these sections has proper contrast, allowing the player to see every important detail, no matter the speed they are going on. I will cover that in more detail later, but generally speaking, you are making a playable level, not painting a picture. Gameplay is always more important than design. Realism and Bhop do not mix well. Creating a map with believable environment that is also suited for unrealistic gameplay is a big challenge. At slower speeds like you have on KZ, it's not a big problem. You can make more or less realistic obstacles and climb sections with the use of props and small ledges. A good example of a popular realistic map would be Bhop Depot. It did not serve as an inspiration for Bhop Decay in any way, but I believe that it is a timeless classic that is both fun to play and visually pleasing. Of course, every map for movement modes has its compromises. Still, gameplay is more important. Any player would rather enjoy playing in a questionable environment than have no fun, but play on a map that is 100% realistic and believable. In Decay, I wanted to combine the best of both worlds. It has insane attention to detail and a whole industrial facility, but it also provides interesting gameplay with a lot of routing options. The definitive part of the map, in my opinion, is the multi-route stage, with collectibles made using Tony Montana's non-linear checkpoint system. It takes time to learn, and is probably frustrating for a first-time player. But after learning the placement of collectibles, it provides runners with freedom of choice and numerous routing options. Besides that, I made sure that it flows well on different speeds, and, of course, is scroll possible. Originally starting as a stage for a collab map that never came out, I started working on this map in early 2020. 2 intense weeks of mapping for countless hours. By the time I finished it, I felt like my soul was gone. This map quite literally drained the life out of me. The results, however, were worth it. Feel free to prove me wrong, but in my opinion, this is the best looking map on Bhop that is based on realism. And even though I believe that gameplay is not as unique as I would like it to be, it still is fun and outstanding. Visually, this map is set in a half-finished abandoned industrial facility. As you descend to the deeper levels, you see more rundown and unfinished areas, hence the name Decay. You quite literally look at the decay of a huge industrial complex. Not all of the elements make sense in the real life, of course. Why would this abstract corridor be here? What are these lighting cubes? Why is there an open sky area above without proper drainage system? I think the beauty of designing levels for a silly block jumping game mode is that the limits are only the ones you set for yourself. These levels take place in an already unrealistic environment, so unlike more serious projects like actual Counter-Strike maps, you don't have to be nitpicky. A good parallel is Portal 2, which also served as one of the inspiration sources for this map, along with Black Mesa. The giant complex that Aperture is makes no sense from a real-life standpoint. In some places, you see that the levels were carefully designed with player movement in mind. But such a rich corporation with an insane owner might as well afford to build a giant facility in some abandoned salt mines. When you play Portal, you still feel like you are in a real place. And that is what's important. That being said, there are certain compromises you have for gameplay. Take a look at these boosters. I did not even try to make them look realistic. From a human point of view, this is bright and shiny. This is important. And from an avid Bhop player's point of view, green is quite a common color to use on boosters. The origin is hard to pinpoint, but as an example, Bhop Null is a map made in early 2013, and it is one of the first, if not the first map to use green color for boosters. It is not some unsaid rule. There are plenty of maps, even ones that I have made, that do not use green color to represent boosters. However, it is an associative thing. If you played a lot of Bhop, the green color in that context hints you that this block is a booster. And boosters are an important part of routing a map. I would rather let the player know instantly that this block is important, instead of having them to enable triggers, or stumbling upon it randomly. Another thing is that, while tied to distinct points on the map, collectible locations are still marked with rotating Bhopman models. It's not a compromise per se, however I believe that in some realistic AAA project, you would never see such a thing. Besides all that, a big part of this map is its layout. An ordinary player would never notice that. However, this map is all interconnected and planned out. I tried to keep the skylight level consistent, only making it higher with the assumption that that part of facility is not seen from any other location. This familiar canyon from Bhop leftovers, a design element I felt like I wanted to rethink using my refined skills, is all interconnected. A small river connects all three sections of it. This corridor is actually the same area with this platform, only separated by a door. And the bottom layer is connected to it as well. Poor scientist got crushed by some of these falling props, so now we can't just use the stairs to go down. Look, a catwalk fell apart and broke the wooden beams at the bottom, and that huge fan shaft, a lot of trash fell to the bottom of it over time. The most interesting feature to me is that the start and the end zone are on top of each other, connected with this shaft. The player is blocked from skipping to the very end by a player clip. However, if you use no clip, you have a very convenient way of placing the start and the end zone without having to search for them. On top of that, it adds to the feeling of this map being all connected and making it a full circle from start to finish. As somebody pointed out, one big design flaw of this map is that logically you have no reason not to just fall down at any given point. Yet besides the obvious, "that's too high" answer, nothing stops you from doing so except for these invisible triggers. This is obviously a design choice I took on purpose, but you could argue it was a flawed one. Another issue I have with this map is the performance. Source is not friendly with performance if you try to push it to the very limits. VVis is an algorithm breaking your map into Vi's leaves, small sections that the engine calculates visibility of other sections from, displacements, meaning high polygon curved areas, and brush entities are invisible to it. So, even if you can't see it yourself, look at how much of the map is rendered from this angle. These are the tool brushes with different functions I used to try and improve the FPS on this map. KZ Bhop Yonkoma released in 2011, a revolutionary map for Scroll, a mix of challenging climb sections with technical gameplay and Bhop. Fast forward to 2024, and its now release of KZ Bhop Genkai, a map made by Flex Lolo, a magnum opus of KZ in C as source, so long and hard that it might never see a single completion. Is it revolutionary or legendary like Yonkoma? That's definitely not up to me to decide. But all the roots go back to Yonkoma. To cite Flex himself, each generation stands on the shoulders of those who have gone before them. Why do I even mention Genkai? Because on some summer day of 2023, Flex started making his own KZ map, and I was supposed to be a part of it. However, we quickly realized that we have different preferences in both design and gameplay. But that gave me an idea. Flex had an interesting philosophy when it comes to mapping. Here is a text from Genkai about his thought process. Together we both came to the conclusion that most KZ maps in Source are boring, and that we both have some unique ideas when it comes to KZ. So when I was free from Genkai, I wanted to make a map of my own. When starting this map, I had some gameplay ideas I wanted to use. Some were inspired by Flex, some were taken from watching numerous Ciasco Creed's runs, most were of my own creation. I made a big box and started building random sections, jumps, and obstacles around it. Then, when I had what I felt like was enough, I started piecing them all together. What inspired me at first were Bhop Interloper and Bhop One Cure. Interloper is such a unique map, in that it has an ending completely opposite of the map itself. You ascend from deep dark caves to a lonely island in the middle of the ocean, watching the sunset and listening to guitar. Solitude. This is what you feel when you finish Interloper. Yet the landscape and the atmosphere are so sweet and soothing that you embrace the feeling of being alone, making it comfort you. So, what I wanted was a map in the middle of an ocean with picturesque sights that conveys the feeling of solitude. But I also felt like that design will not allow for the freedom I want to have when making such a map. I was planning for a lot of sections that are far more suited for corridors and enclosed rooms. So, I planned ahead, knowing that at one point I will have to connect the inside and the outside. One thing I did not know at the time was how foreshadowing that map was. Later that year, I had to part ways with a woman I fell in love with before anything serious could even begin. So the feeling of solitude and devastation was encapsulated within the map, even if I started working around that theme, only because I saw a lot of beauty in it. As I've said on the Game Banana page, this map's design is revolving around the feeling of solitude, soothing loneliness while watching the sunset amidst the sea, empty underground halls, pitch black and pure white corridors with nothing standing out, dugout grave in a gray, empty park, white walls stained with blood in the mental asylum. You clearly see the depressing design around you, yet I do not think it feels too edgy. The central focus of the map is still Bhop and tech. You are free to focus on the gameplay if you wish. I made sure that all the quotes and paintings are easily visible, but never screaming in your face. The only exception would be that one room with the noose hanging from above. One, and probably the only thing I am disappointed in, is how much of that map is just a long corridor, and how much of said corridor looks okay at most. However, there are two big open sections contrasting the corridors that I believe look very pretty. The music is optional too. You are not forced to listen to it. However, if you would like to listen to the tracks that I believe represent these sections the best, you have a choice to do so at any time. Teleporting to the middle of the starting platform resets everything to complete silence. Music on Bhop is controversial. As with any level, it can add to the atmosphere. Just listen to the soundtrack from Ultrakill that I chose to accompany this section of the map. But for most players, the music on the level will simply become an annoyance, hence the making of Stop Sound plugin. For that reason, I gave the player a freedom of choice. This is easily doable on a slow-paced KZ map. Just enter a small zone that will turn each track on. That would be very impractical for a high-speed map. A valid workaround I used for Shutdown is to allow the player to enter a trigger that gives out a flag, telling each soundscape to activate for a brief moment. This is achieved by a combination of two triggers. One checks for the flag, activating the soundscape trigger next to it if the check was valid. The design is not perfect. In a highly improbable situation, two players can enter the triggers around the same time. If one of them is flagged, the second player will hear the music, even if they never entered the trigger I put at the start. The map I released before making Solitude is Escape Room Movement. It is my take on the escape room trend that was popular in Minecraft some time ago, but reworked for Source. To beat the map, you do not need any real skill. You only need knowledge of the engine. One part stood out to me in particular. To my surprise, not a lot of players knew how to wall strafe. It is a tech that allows you to gain speed in the air without air strafing. If a player angles their crosshair slightly away from the wall and hold one of the movement keys to move into the wall, they gain some amount of speed while in the air. Wall strafe followed by a Bhop block is one of the jumps you have to beat on KZ Bhop Solitude. Feel free to prove me wrong in the comments, but I do not recall any source map that forces you to wall strafe.
I don't know, I was delusional or something.
I did not aim to make a revolution in the gameplay or make a fully unique map. I just wanted to make a good KZ map that uses ideas I came up with or did not see used often. Wall strafe, angled long jump, slopes, interchangeable single Bhop blocks, ladders, and many more things. Another weird thing on KZ is difficulty. Strafing is the most important skill, but it's not the only one. Consistency, edge timing, scrolling, mouse control. There are a lot of things that make a player stand out. When making a map, most people only care about distances. Hitting 10 perfect jumps on spikes is difficult. Beating 10 impossible jumps in a row without failing is difficult. Neither of these things are fun. There is a difference between cheap and fun difficulty. A good map challenges a player, not tortures them. Some mappers also like to put difficult jumps at the end of a section, not at the beginning. It is not a bad thing, but it can lead to the previous jumps becoming fillers and an annoyance before an actual challenge. On my map, I usually put filler jumps only to connect sections or other jumps. Solitude starts with a primitive stretch, long jump followed by 2 single Bhop blocks and a multi-Bhop. But that section has an actual purpose. The long jump at the start is exactly 256 units, because I believe that this is around the difficulty of the whole map, at least in terms of pure strafing. 2 single Bhop blocks are set in a way that does not allow the player to jump the gap without jumping on any of them twice. This teaches the player 2 things. Orange means single Bhop block, and you can jump between them. The next block with purple outline is to let the player know that purple blocks allow you to jump on them repeatedly. Visual cues are really important in games. As I've said previously, any mapper should value gameplay over looks. So I made sure that every block used in gameplay is visible to the player, and I let the player know the purpose of said block. Instead of choosing a realistic texture, which is an option as long as the meaning is clear to the player, I marked all of the important surfaces with bright and contrasting colors. Red for ramps or slopes, blue for ladders, orange for single Bhop, green for boosters, and purple for multi-Bhops. Contrast is a very important thing when it comes to level design. A lot of games make important things stand out. On top of that, contrast is especially important on Bhop, because similar-looking textures can make it hard to see where you are going on high speed, or hard to see the edge of the block. An interesting situation happened between me and the Fuckathops community. I never knew that they loved to play KZ maps regularly, and it was a surprise to me that Solitude was added there. They, however, were complaining about possible skips and abuses possible on Auto Bhop. I have to admit, the map lacked proper testing. Everything was replayed countless times, but late-time additions or small mistakes lead to problems. What surprised me was the fact that people complained about the map on the mode it never intended to be played on. I am not against people playing on modes they like, and I do not gatekeep Scroll, but it feels weird to me that people break the map because they play it in unintended ways and get surprised about it. That said, to give credit where it's due, these are all nice people that helped me improve the map. I do not think Scroll is RNG at its core. It's pseudo-RNG, meaning it is just humanly impossible to be 100% consistent. That said, I understand why Scroll is not appealing to a lot of people. I suggest they at least play stamina and 250 running velocity in that case. On an open map like Solitude, the mapper does not accommodate for flat ground skips impossible below 1000 velocity. Having Auto Bhop allows for unintended skips, even with stamina. However, that is easily fixable with anti-cheat zones. Additionally, stamina allows for an interesting mechanic called stamina reset that I used in my map. Playing without it really makes some of the sections pointless. Some people view it as competitive. Some come here to relax. To me, Bhop, like every multiplayer game, is a social thing. I have been a part of many communities, met a lot of people, and spent a lot of hours simply chatting. I have around 50 hours on Tricks at this point, without ever playing it. All I do there is spectate people and chat whenever somebody I know is on. When given a freedom of no clip and lack of any punishment for not playing, some people spend their time having fun, or wandering around the map. On Yonkoma, for example, before attempting to beat the actual map, you had to activate the entrance first. It has an amazing starting area that is never played nowadays. Understandably, forcing people to do that over and over again before being even allowed to play does not go well with how competitive Bhop is and how challenging the map is. Personally though, I love little details and Easter eggs. I usually add random memes or Easter eggs without hiding them, but given how slow Scroll gameplay is, I decided to give players the freedom of exploration. There is nothing preventing you from walking onto the roof here, for example. Players are free to wander around it, but to prevent any skips, I teleport them back if they ever fall down. With the same principle, I also hid some Easter eggs and collectibles around the map. The player can reach any of them if they ever want to look around and go off the main course. It warms my heart when I talk to people that played my map, and they tell me they got curious and collected all the hearts to see what's behind the locked door. I've hinted at Shutdown 3 a lot of times. I have a text file from around 2020 with ideas that I wanted to make a reality. A small portion of them exist in the maps that followed. Some of them do not look that great to me anymore, and some of them only exist as characters in a TXT file. To quote my 17-year-old self, mapping is just a waste of time. I probably don't think that way nowadays. To me, mapping, as with any art, is self-expression, and in case of Bhop, a gift for myself and the community. I spent around 4 months working on Solitude on and off, but I never felt like it was a burden. I enjoyed every minute of that process, except maybe dealing with stupid issues sometimes caused by Source Engine and Hammer. However, making a high-quality map takes time and patience. As with every piece of art, the greatest gift to the creator is others enjoying it. But time is valuable, and all hobbies and passion projects take a lot of time. I don't know for sure if I will make another big map. Currently, I am working on a small map that is like a proof of concept. In any case, Bhop and mapping still have a special place in my heart, and I hope that my work was of use to other people. If any of my maps made people have a great time playing them, or even better, inspired them, then the time I spend definitely did not go to waste.